Ubers is the highest tier of competitive singles, a format where the most powerful Pokemon in the game, like Mewtwo, Kyogre, and Palkia, are free to wreak havoc. As you might expect, most teams consist of multiple legendaries in this format. Sometimes non-legendary Pokemon are used for their defensive benefits, but these are usually OU staples like Blissey, Skarmory, or Ferrothorn. But sometimes in Ubers, you see some truly random Pokemon choices that suck in tiers like OU or even UU, but thrive against specific legendaries up in Ubers. Let's take a look at some of the most interesting low-tier choices that have a surprisingly important role to fill in the highest power level format competitive Pokemon has to offer. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to earn yourself a ticket to the initiation ceremony for Makago, who after a long and arduous legal process has just been accepted as an official member of the Horse Council. Thank you. Kabutops is actually one of the weakest Swift Swim Pokemon in Gen 3 OU. Kabutops is a physical attacking swift swimmer, meaning it can't really benefit at all from the rain boost on water type attack. There are no permanent rain setting abilities in Gen 3 OU, so it needs a teammate to set rain for it usually, because it wants a choice band to actually have a decent damage output. If you were running a Rain Dance Kabutops set, it simply wouldn't hit hard enough to justify spending the turn rain dancing. But Kingdra and Ludicolo on the other hand are much better swift swim Pokemon in the OU format, because they can set their own rain and directly benefit from it by the boosted surf, which turns them into really great late game cleaners and effective special offense Pokemon. And even if you do have rain support for Kabutops on another Pokemon and get it in, it's not even that powerful. It's pretty easily stopped by stuff like Swampert. Most teams have rock resists on them anyway, so a lot of very common Pokemon completely stop Kabutops in its tracks. However, in Gen 3 Ubers, where Kyogre is legal, obviously all Swift Swim Pokemon become a lot better by the presence of a permanent rain ability to take advantage of. But you might be surprised to hear that Kabutops in this format is actually quite a lot better than both Kingdra and Ludicolo, and is in fact perhaps the best swift swimmer in Gen 3 Ubers, many players believe. While you might expect Kingdra and Ludicolo to be much better in Ubers, they have a problem, and that is they have extreme speed to worry about. In Ubers, Deoxys Attack is one of the most common Pokemon in the game, and it pretty much always runs extreme speed, a powerful priority move with 80 base power. Having some sort of priority option really improves consistency, helping you out against some stuff like sub-Salakberry reversal sets on Heracross or Medicham, allowing you a way to play around that Salakberry speed boost with something that hits them first. And it's also useful against these pesky Swift Swim Pokemon that can outrun everything in the rain. If these guys are just a little bit chipped, they're going to drop to a Deoxys Attack extreme speed. But Kabutops, guess what folks, it's a rock type, meaning it resists extreme speed and can shrug it off very well. It also has a really nice defense stat too, helping it stomach those extreme speeds. Rayquaza also has Airlock, which disables the rain effects, meaning Kingdra and Ludicolo won't be speedy anymore. And it can then, of course, hit them with a big hidden power flying or extreme speed if it's running a choice band set. But Kabutops makes things a bit awkward for Rayquaza since it resists both flying and normal, and might invite it to lock into Earthquake, which is something you can take advantage of, Earthquake being a move prone to getting punished by immunities. So Rayquaza does not deal with Kabutops as a swift swimmer as cleanly as it deals with Kingdra and Ludicolo. It can get rid of the swift swim effect, but it is a little bit awkward for it. It can't lock into Earthquake very safely. It's a punishable move. And take a look at this one folks, a bit of calculation for you if you'll allow me. If Rayquaza is non-choice banded, adamant max attack, Kabutops only needs a little bit of bulk, a little bit of HP EVs which you can afford, and it's a 50% chance to one-hit KO with Earthquake. Only 50% chance. So even if Rayquaza is faster after disabling Swift Swim, it is not a good situation. You're taking a real risk going for this Earthquake if Kabutops is healthy. Omastar is another alternative to Kabutops with a similar rock-water typing, and it is superior as a special attacker, which sometimes you prefer, but unlike back in OU, a physical attacking Swift Swim is actually quite good up here. Rock Slide and Double Edge threaten a lot of stuff neutrally, and Kabutops can operate similarly to a Aerodactyl in OU, with its high speed and large physical damage output being pretty difficult to switch in against at times. You think about the common Pokemon in Gen 3 Ubers, Latios, who resists water and has good special bulk, but actually can struggle coming in on Rock Slide or Double Edge. The Swift Swim Pokemon can be walled by Blissey and Snorlax, but Kabutops threatens both Blissey and Snorlax much more. It threatens a lot of the flying types in Ubers like Ho-Oh and Lugia very well. It even has a good option if it's luring in a Steel type with Hidden Power Ground to chunk Metagross or something. And it also has Rapid Spin as an extra bit of utility, which is surprisingly useful on a fast Pokemon that outruns everything in the correct weather. Getting a last-ditch Rapid Spin, clearing all the hazards, can win you the entire game in some situations. And even in Gen 4 Ubers, Kabutops maintained its relevance as one of the best Swift Swim Pokemon in that format too, with new options to take advantage of, like the new item Life Orb, an offensive item that allows you to switch moves, Waterfall, some new physical stab actually boosted by the rain now, and a low kick, which is really great. A lot of legendaries tend to have really high weight, meaning this has maximum power against most things, and in particular hits Dialga really hard, who is really common in Gen 4 Ubers. Once again, able to threaten a huge portion of the metagame and really benefit from rain, perhaps even more so in Gen 4. Speaking of Gen 4 Ubers, would you believe me if I told you that the Pokemon Ariados is a viable lead in this format? Ariados was clearly not designed to be a competitive Pokemon as a random bug with no stats whatsoever, but against all odds, this little guy happens to have really good lead matchups in Gen 4 Ubers of all things. A common lead in Gen 4 Ubers is Darkrai, a Pokemon that can start things off with a lot of early momentum, putting an enemy to sleep with Dark Void, getting some chip damage with Bad Dreams, sometimes even boosting up with Nasty Plot and putting your opponent in a tough position very early on. It's also very fast, so it can outrun a lot of different common leads and just put them to sleep. Ariados has Insomnia, meaning it's completely immune to sleep. Ariados can safely set its hazards in the face of Darkrai, not worried about getting put to sleep. Ariados actually counteracts this common lead matchup. But Ariados is not just a one-trick pony. Another common lead is Deoxys Speed and Deoxys Attack. They both serve a similar purpose, setting up spikes or Stealth Rock in the early game, or just outright attacking or even taunting the enemy lead. But Ariados can also Bug Bite these guys and do the Shadow Sneak follow-up. Ariados also has access to Toxic Spikes, giving it something to do in other lead matchups, and with Focus Sash it can get that layer of Toxic Spikes up pretty safely. Toxic Spikes is a really good move in Gen 4 Ubers with not that many poison types to choose from in the metagame. There's no poison type legendaries, so setting Toxic Spikes is a common strategy in this format that gets a lot of value punishing Pokemon like Palkia, Kyogre, Blissey, everything almost. Ariados also has the added benefit of being able to remove Toxic Spikes just by switching in later on, so you can leave it on 1 health, bring it back in later to remove Toxic Spikes. That one won't come up that often, it'll probably fall to hazards itself most of the time, but it's a little bit of extra value you can squeeze out of this bug. The Gen 4 Ubers lead metagame is actually very interesting. There's a lot of unorthodox stuff and anti-meta choices that prop up. BKC has a video about this very topic, specifically about the lead metagame in Gen 4 Ubers, and as you can see the video goes for 1 hour and 20 minutes. There are some serious hidden depths to the lead situations in Gen 4 Ubers. I would recommend checking this video out. And in a similar vein to Ariados, a bug type that usually sucks finding a weird role for itself amongst the legendaries in Ubers, Accelgor in Generation 5 had a very similar experience. Accelgor is a pretty interesting Pokemon design. It's just a mono bug type, and it has an enormous speed stat of base 145. Pretty average stats everywhere else. And in most formats, this ability to outrun everything and set hazards isn't that useful. In OU, there are better Pokemon at this job, like Aerodactyl or Terrakion. So Accelgor is ranked in RU in Gen 5. But up in Ubers, Accelgor's high speed comes in handy actually. Much like Ariados back in Gen 4 Ubers, Accelgor is a bit of an anti-Darkrai lead. It outruns Darkrai amazingly. Darkrai is really fast, but Accelgor is even faster. And Accelgor threatens an enormous Bug Buzz with Stab boost against Darkrai, which has a 75% chance to one-hit KO. Now that's pretty impressive. Accelgor also has the ability Unburdened, which doubles your speed if you have lost your held item, if it has been consumed or knocked off or other such things. And on a Pokemon with such high speed already, this seems like diminishing returns, seems like not the best. However, in Ubers, guess who exists? Deoxys Speed. And sometimes Deoxys Speed even runs a damn Choice Scarf. Even though Deoxys speed is already the fastest thing of all time, it can run a Choice Scarf and get a really fast trick off, disabling an enemy by giving them a disadvantageous Choice Scarf. It can also choose to set hazards or taunt faster than anything. But Accelgor with Unburden procced, if the Deoxys chooses to attack Accelgor, will result in Accelgor outrunning Deoxys speed with a Choice Scarf. Can you imagine such a thing? Choice Scarf Deoxys speed hits 655 max speed, but Accelgor with an Unburden boost hits 800 something, firmly outrunning everything on Earth. So Accelgor is actually a really good lead in Gen 5 Ubers, scaring out Darkrai and also causing a lot of problems for Deoxys speed. Deoxys speed can't really attack the thing, or it procs Unburden. You can taunt it if you want, if you think Accelgor's going to spike up, but they can just Bug Buzz and KO you directly. And against just about every other lead matchup, you are faster, you have a Focus Sash for that turn of security, and you can set spikes on the field, which is a great way to open up a game, pressuring everything that wants to switch in. You even have Yawn, which is a useful way to set up for a teammate. Maybe you spike on the first turn, then Yawn, instead of setting a second layer, because Yawn will put the enemy to sleep on the subsequent turn. And now you have a spike up, you've put something to sleep, and you've probably started this game off with a lot of early momentum thanks to Accelgor. And even if you don't like the lead matchup and you want to get out of there, bring Accelgor back in later, guess what? You got U-turn. You can just get out of there. Maybe you lead up against a Darkrai, they want to get out of there, maybe to a Rapid Spinner to try and 1v1 you, but instead you U-turn, pivot to something that threatens their Rapid Spinner, and you've started the game off with early momentum. You still have the Accelgor in the back pocket for later. It's a very flexible and no-nonsense lead in Gen 5. And if you take a look at the Gen 5 Ubers viability rankings, look at this. Accelgor is ranked in B+. This is a recent ranking. That is really good. Alongside some Arceus forms, lesser seen Arceus forms, and above such Pokemon as Mewtwo. Is that real? Accelgor ranked above Mewtwo, Accelgor ranked above Shaman S. I mean, it's a very effective lead, and it is probably a pretty consistent way to play Gen 5 Ubers, honestly. That does it for my little showcase of these three Pokemon that are bad everywhere else, but good in the highest power level format of competitive singles, which is an interesting quirk. That can happen in Ubers formats, I think, because when a metagame is so centralized around such powerful legendaries, Pokemon that target those specific Pokemon rise in viability, and sometimes the Pokemon that do target specific enemies like Darkrai and Deoxys are random little bug types that you wouldn't consider otherwise. And there are many more examples of this, of weird little Pokemon that find a place in Ubers formats. If you enjoyed this, there's enough funny examples like this to talk about in future videos. Happy to do another one if you guys enjoy. What is your favorite niche Pokemon to use in an Ubers format? I think mine would be Accelgor. I think this guy is really fun. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.